I sensed something wasn't right when I first lifted up the velvet box containing the wedding ring since it was so light. Maybe I had a sneaking suspicion of what was going to happen. Linda Ford is my name. I am employed at an investment bank as an analyst, and I am 28 years old. Anthony Rhodes, my longtime boyfriend, proposed to me 5 months ago. I had made it a daily habit to look at my wedding ring every morning as our wedding day drew near. This unique ring was chosen as a gift for Anthony's fiancé by his parents, who are well-known financial industry tycoons. My heart almost stopped as I opened the box. It was deserted. It was the absence of the ring that ought to have gleamed in the morning light. "Mom," I ran down the steps and yelled, "Did you notice my ring? Have you moved it?" My mom slowly looked up from her coffee in the kitchen. She had her favorite cup wrapped around her immaculately manicured fingers. She had instilled these ideals in us, her daughters, and had always been a perfectionist. Her brow lowered. "What do you mean?" "It's in your room, right? Perhaps you simply forgot where you put it because you've been so busy getting ready for the wedding." "The box is empty," I answered, presenting the velvet case with shaking hands. "It's always been right here." My mother said, "You're getting messier, aren't you?" without even glancing at the box, with everything related to the wedding on your thoughts. My sister Catherine's laughter came from the backyard at that very moment. She left college at the age of 23, and she has been relaxing at home instead of working ever since. I peered out the window. Catherine was there, playing with her phone and enjoying the sun. "Catherine," with the screen door slamming loudly behind me, I rushed out into the garden. "Do you know anything about my ring?" She pivoted. Catherine's face broke into the arrogant smirk she had had since we were kids. "Oh, hey, Linda," she said. "What's happening? Why the rush? Do you know where my wedding ring is?" "Where? I'm not sure." She gave a shrug. "It's gone. There's no sign of it." "Really? Are you certain you did a thorough check?" She pretended to be innocent as she cocked her head. Then she smirked out of the blue. "Oh, now I do recall. I pawned your ring to get one for Michael and myself because I had some debts to pay off. For it, I received a respectable price. You can get a better one from Anthony." I was taken aback by her sudden admission. This had always been our sisterly relationship. The youngest, Catherine, received whatever she desired from others because she was pampered by our parents. On the other hand, because I was the oldest, I had to work hard for everything and was always held to high standards. Since we were young, everything had been this way. I was the only one reprimanded while Catherine and I committed the same errors. "Because you're the older sister." Those were words that I hated. I was 5 years old when Catherine was born. I was constantly put in a supporting role while our parents treated her like something exceptional. My parents' focus was always on Catherine, regardless of how well I did in school or how many honors I received for extracurricular activities. I always had the best marks in high school. My goal of working in the finance industry was within reach, and I had a scholarship set up. Catherine, meanwhile, did not participate in extracurricular activities and received low marks. Our parents persisted in saying, however, that she has her own strengths. I started living on my own after receiving a scholarship to college. I obtained internship experience while working weekends part-time. Anthony and I met there. He greatly appreciated my analytical abilities while he was a young executive in training at his father's business. Catherine, meanwhile, left the nearby institution soon after she enrolled. After declaring that the university just isn't for me, she began working part-time at a clothes store. As my relationship with Anthony deepened, his family warmly welcomed me. Anthony's mother especially trusted me to be a great partner to support her son. The ring Anthony's parents chose for me was also imbued with such sentiments. "Don't say such ridiculous things." I stepped forward and glared at Catherine. "Where is my wedding ring? It's a precious ring, specially chosen by Anthony's parents. Give it back to me right now." "I've already sold it, so I don't have it anymore," she smirked. I'm planning to get married to my handsome boyfriend eventually, so I used it to pay off debts and to fund our own wedding ring." Catherine was currently infatuated with her boyfriend, sparing no expense on beauty treatments and high-end brands to become his ideal woman. Whether it was genuine love or she was just being used was honestly unclear. "Linda, what are you yelling about?" It was my father's voice. He was standing at the back door. Behind him, my mother wore a worried expression. "Catherine stole my wedding ring and sold it without permission," I said. "No, Dad, that's not it." Catherine's lower lip trembled. Her knack for acting hadn't changed since she was a child. My mother stepped forward, placing her hand on my arm. "Catherine is your sister. Why would you say such awful things? She had her reasons. She was being chased by debt collectors. So how does that give her the right to steal and sell my wedding ring? Are you serious? It's my ring. You think I can just stay quiet after being told she stole and sold it?" I shook off my mother's hand, my voice trembling with anger. "Just buy a new ring," my father said with exasperation. "That's absurd. That ring is very special, and it's irreplaceable." I stared at my parents. "Besides, this is a crime." "Oh, honey," my mother's voice carried that condescending tone I despised. "I understand you're upset, but don't blame Catherine so harshly. Everyone makes mistakes, don't they? Why can't you forgive her just this once?" I looked at the three of them. My mother's disdainful expression, my father's awkward avoidance of eye contact, and Catherine's smug smirk. For 25 years, they had always favored Catherine and protected her. I hadn't expected it to this extent. At that moment, something inside me solidified. A lifetime of patience crystallized into a resolution that settled in my heart. "I understand," I said quietly. "If that's how you feel, I have my own plans. You better get ready." I heard my parents calling my name from behind, but I didn't look back as I entered the house. They had no idea what was about to happen. I quickly packed the essentials and headed to my best friend Maggie's apartment. I spent the night at Maggie's place. Maggie and I met in a bookkeeping club at university. She's a sharp-witted and outspoken woman, a skilled trader working on Wall Street. Though our personalities are opposites, we complement each other perfectly. How did it come to this? Maggie handed me a glass of wine as we looked out over the Manhattan skyline from her apartment. "I don't know," I said, taking the trembling glass. "Why does it have to be like this, even though we're family, Linda?" Maggie looked into my eyes with a serious expression. "You've always sacrificed yourself for your family, but this situation cannot be overlooked. This isn't just a sibling fight. It's a serious crime." Maggie began to calmly analyze the situation. "First, let's get the facts straight. This is a clear case of theft. The ring was bought by Anthony's parents, which means the Reynolds family's reputation is also involved." "Yes, but what should I do?" "It's necessary to set things right, because we're family." Maggie gripped my hand firmly. "If you overlook this incident, Catherine will repeat the same behavior. That benefits no one." We talked until late into the night. Maggie not only explained the legal aspects in detail, but also patiently listened to my emotional venting. "Do you remember in university? You covered for my investment mistake," Maggie reminisced. "You scolded me harshly then, but afterward you helped me find a solution. It's the same with this situation with Catherine. Sometimes tough love is necessary." Maggie's words gradually cleared my doubts. Her presence was a great support during this difficult time. "Hey," Maggie said as she topped up our wine, "don't you think this situation has revealed your parents' true nature? They've coddled Catherine and placed excessive expectations on you. Is that really love?" Those words articulated a question that had long lingered in my heart. Maggie had always provided me with perspectives I hadn't noticed. "However, Anthony's parents are different," Maggie continued. "They recognize and trust your worth. You must address this situation properly so as not to betray that trust." Maggie's advice was always spot on. It was because of her presence that I was able to make the right decisions. The confrontation. The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house with a clear purpose. Everyone was gathered in the kitchen as if nothing had happened. "Oh, good," my mother said as she slid a plate of pancakes onto the counter. "Linda, we were worried about you." Seeing that I remained standing, it was clear they expected me to have calmed down and to handle things smoothly as usual. Catherine was sitting at the table. Just as I frowned, my father started, "Dear Linda, we've been discussing and thinking." "No," I interrupted him. "You don't need to think about anything. That ring is mine, and Catherine stole it and then sold it. She needs to return it to me immediately." "Actually," my mother straightened up, "we'll buy you a new ring, a better one. That way, everyone can be happy, right?" I stared at her in disbelief. Everyone can be happy. My sister stole my precious ring from me, and you're okay with that. It's not like that, but you're the older sister, right? Can't you forgive a small mistake? My heart pounded fiercely. I slowly took out my smartphone. It was on speaker mode and a call was active. "Mr. Ford, what exactly is going on?" A male voice came through the phone. Is that James Reynolds?" My parents looked shocked, as if the blood had drained from their faces. The caller was Anthony's father, James Reynolds, a businessman with over 30 years of experience. He owned multiple companies, and his wealth was immense. Before returning home, I had consulted him over the phone and secretly slipped the still-active smartphone into my pocket on speaker mode. I continued speaking while maintaining eye contact with Catherine. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Reynolds. Could you please explain the situation?" "Yes, as you've just heard, my sister stole the wedding ring you bought for me and sold it to pay off her debts." I kept the phone on speaker mode, still looking directly at Catherine. "Please continue. When my parents learned the truth, they reproached me, arguing that everyone makes mistakes. 'Why can't you forgive just one mistake?' they asked. They seemed sweaty and panicked." "I see. The situation seems more serious than I thought," James said. My mother managed to say, "We're really sorry to Linda, but Catherine was in a tough situation. It was a hard decision for her. We will buy Linda a new ring ourselves." Catherine then added, "Mr. Reynolds, I'm really sorry, but Linda has a perfect job and a perfect life. She can get another ring." "That's unacceptable." "That's enough." James' voice was calm, but there was a hint of anger in it. The investigation. The next day, our family sat in the Reynolds study, facing Anthony's parents. Anthony, having heard the situation from me, was also present. The study was filled with solid furniture and historic paintings. James Reynolds, a wealthy businessman with over 30 years on Wall Street, was visibly angry. "The ring we bought for Linda isn't just any piece of jewelry," he said. His voice was low yet forceful. Elizabeth, Anthony's mother, spoke tearfully. "That ring was specially chosen as a symbol of welcoming Linda into our family. It represents our feelings." Seeing the expressions of my parents and Catherine, it seemed they finally realized the gravity of what they had done. Catherine's face was pale and she couldn't raise her head. "I'm sorry. My daughter has done something terrible," my father said, mustering all his strength. Tears filled my mother's eyes as she repeatedly apologized, desperate and shaken. The study was dominated by a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. Amidst this tension, Anthony stood up decisively. He stood next to his father and promised, "I will find it and get it back." Anthony himself was a businessman who had successfully led an investment company at a young age. His determination to protect his family's honor was evident in his eyes. "Check every pawn shop," Anthony's father commanded. "Don't worry about the costs. It's for the family's honor." The search. The next few days, we searched tirelessly. From Manhattan to Brooklyn, we visited each pawn shop one by one, from high-end stores to small shops. "Have you seen a ring like this?" I asked again and again, has a young woman brought in a ring with these features. On the third day, an elderly shop owner in Brooklyn showed us his shop's surveillance footage. This woman brought it in a few days ago, he said. The footage clearly showed Catherine. She had sold the ring and received a substantial amount of cash. It hasn't been cashed out yet, so it should still be in the store, the shopkeeper explained, retrieving the ring from the back. From the woman's uneasy demeanor in the video, I sensed something was off. "I'm glad I held off on cashing it," the shopkeeper said. Anthony immediately verified the ring. "It's undeniable. This is it." "Thank goodness," I breathed. "I'm so relieved." Overwhelmed, I couldn't help but cry. The consequences. With the ring in hand, I went to the Reynolds house and presented it to Anthony's parents. His mother silently hugged me while his father sighed deeply in relief. "We will handle this matter, including taking legal steps," his father stated firmly. "Linda, you are a member of our family. Compromise is not an option when it comes to protecting our honor." I nodded in agreement. Through this experience, I felt even more strongly the deep love embedded within their sternness. For them, the ring was not just an ornament, but a symbol of family bonds and trust. We began the process of filing a criminal complaint at the police station. While drafting the report on Catherine's theft, the detective reviewed the surveillance footage. "There is clear evidence here," the detective noted. "The pawn shop transaction footage is undeniable, and we've identified the ring." My parents rushed to the police station. My mother broke down crying, and my father looked pale as death. "Please drop the charges," my mother pleaded. It was too late. I said to them quietly, "This is a crime." 2 days later, Catherine was released. A meeting with lawyers was arranged, and both families discussed the matter. The expressions on my parents' and Catherine's faces were more serious than I had ever seen. "We were wrong," my father admitted quietly. I shifted my gaze from my father to Catherine and suggested, "Let's discuss and explore a way to settle this." The terms of the settlement we proposed were clear. Catherine would fully pay the amount used to buy back the ring, and she would cease all contact with me and my family. Eventually, my parents accepted these terms, and Catherine agreed as well. After a heavy silence, my father spoke. "We accept. This was a failure in our upbringing," he acknowledged. My mother, tears brimming in her eyes, nodded. "Linda, we have hurt you for years. I'm truly sorry," she said. Her hand trembled slightly as she signed the settlement document. This marked the beginning of a new chapter for our family. "Catherine, tell me one thing. How did it come to this?" "Because you were perfect," Catherine answered with a bitter expression. "You could do everything, and you were excellent. In contrast, I always felt inferior. I wanted to affirm my worth by depending on Mom and Dad, but I leaned on them too much. I desperately needed money. The debt collectors were after me every day." Hearing this, I felt a mix of complex emotions. Indeed, I had always tried to be the good child. I strove to meet my parents' expectations and achieve societal success. But was that truly the life I wanted? When the settlement was finalized and I decided to cut off contact with Catherine, a profound emptiness spread within me. Can the bonds of family really be severed so easily? Afterward, my parents resolved to encourage Catherine to become independent, pushing her to live on her own. She is currently looking for an apartment in preparation for this new chapter. Months later, just 1 week before my wedding to Anthony, my mother unexpectedly visited my apartment. "Linda, can we talk for a moment?" she asked, her usual assertive tone replaced by a more subdued demeanor. "I've been thinking a lot about Catherine," she began quietly. "We've indulged her too much, always accepting her excuses and never holding her accountable. And with you, we've been too harsh and unfair." "Mom, we made a significant mistake with the ring incident. Trying to cover up our daughter's crime was the lowest act as parents," she admitted, tears glistening in her eyes. "But you did the right thing. Taking legal action made Catherine face reality, which ultimately benefited her." That evening, I received a call from my father. "Linda, may I attend the wedding?" His voice was unusually hesitant. Our relationship had been awkward since the ring incident. "Yes, Dad. Anthony would be happy for you to come too," I replied. "Thank you." He paused before continuing. "I've been taking dance lessons. I don't want to ruin the father-daughter dance." His words made me smile. Involuntarily, I imagined my always dignified father learning to dance for me. It warmed my heart. My decision to forgive my parents was influenced by their sincere efforts. Catherine had received $20,000 from the pawn shop. To make amends, my parents decided to use part of their retirement funds to repay this amount. "This is also our way of making amends for everything else we've done wrong to you," my father had said. The repayment from Catherine was proceeding smoothly. My father checked the payments at the bank every month, his sense of responsibility to the family evident. Anthony's parents, without ever mentioning the incident with the ring, wholeheartedly celebrated our new beginning. His mother, especially, meticulously helped with everything, from choosing the dress to decorating the venue. "You are our pride," she told me on the final fitting day. "I know you will make Anthony happy, but more importantly, I want you to cherish your own happiness," she said, a sentiment no one had ever expressed to me before. My own happiness? What was that exactly? On the morning of the wedding, I greeted the day with a surprisingly calm spirit. While the makeup artist applied the final touches, I studied my reflection in the mirror. "Linda." A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. It was my mother. "Come in," I invited her. She teared up upon seeing me in my white dress. "You look perfect," she murmured. "Mom, look at this," I said, picking up an envelope from the dresser. "It's a letter from Catherine." Since the incident, I hadn't seen Catherine, adhering to the terms of our settlement, which also included no contact. Occasionally, I felt a pang of loneliness, a contradiction I was fully aware of, despite the years of distress caused by her actions and the unjust treatment by our parents. Recalling Catherine's words of anguish that day stirred complex emotions within me. "Have you opened it?" my mother asked softly. "Not yet," I replied, caressing the envelope gently, "but I don't think I need to open it now." Instead, I stood up and took her hand. "Today is a day for new beginnings. Let's leave the past behind and look forward." She nodded silently and embraced me. In the chapel, Anthony awaited me with a gentle smile. My father, nervous yet composed, took my arm, and we began walking down the aisle. "Don't be nervous, Dad," I whispered softly. "Show me the results of those lessons." My father gave a small smile. As we exchanged vows and rings, a moment of hesitation appeared when Anthony slipped the ring onto my finger. But as his warm hand enveloped mine and the ring settled quietly, it felt as if everything had returned to its rightful place. During the father-daughter dance at the reception, my father led me with slightly awkward yet earnest steps. "Linda," he whispered as the song was ending, "thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me to live strongly and honestly." That night, after the party ended and I was alone in my hotel room, I finally opened Catherine's letter. "To my big sister, I won't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve to. But I needed to tell you that your decision was right. When you said you would press charges, I was filled with anger and resentment. But now I understand. It was the wake-up call I needed. I'm currently in counseling. I've also started repaying my debts. For the first time, I'm trying to solve my problems on my own without relying on our parents. This might be the first time I'm truly taking responsibility for my actions. I hope you find happiness. I truly wish that for you from the bottom of my heart. Catherine." A new chapter for our family was about to begin. By the way, it seems Catherine has broken up with that boyfriend. I think it's for the best. Sometimes the deepest wounds give rise to the most beautiful lessons, and sometimes to reclaim what was lost, you have to let go of everything that was. That was the true brilliance I learned from the ring.